all agreed with each other. There was no debate. There was no dialogue. There was no discussion. It was random people blurting out ideas. Everybody else was nodding their heads. In total agreement with everything that was said, no matter what. I mean, that could have said anything. They would all nod their heads.
Well, of course they're all going to agree to this, right? I mean, the entire SAC was founded like this. This is straight from the PHM website. The Superintendent's Advisory Council will serve as a steering committee to further the diversity, equity, and inclusion recommendations made by the SAC and seeks to work on eliminating racial injustices and discrimination within the school district as outlined.
And welcome back to Real News Michiana's weekly Real News Roundup. I'm your host, Ben. This bounty hunter looking guy, the bearded assassin you see on the right of your screen, is none other than Clifton French. He is the editor and the founder of Real News Michiana. What is going on? Happy Sunday, Clifton.
Hey, happy Sunday, Ben. Once again, everybody, please subscribe, like this page, and subscribe to realnewsmichiana.com. 30 cents a day, $9 a month. Helps us keep doing what we're doing.
Beautifully said. Getting into things. Our first story of the day. PHM, they finally opened the diversity and inclusion meetings to the public after the state came down on them for breaking the law. So yeah, breaking the law this entire time, having equity meetings while nobody could see or hear what was going on.
Yeah, Ben. So PHM schools have been hiding this Superintendent's Advisory Council, having these secret meetings. And it's all about diversity and inclusion. They made these claims that these meetings were not open to the public because these people were not elected, that they were just put together and appointed by the superintendent himself. Completely illegal. The state came down and said, hey, listen, you're breaking open door laws. You have to have these open to the public. So they finally had their first one. And I believe you were there, Ben.
You know what? Funny you say that. I kind of was. So I showed up and I videotaped the whole damn thing. And I noticed there was a lot of wordsmithing. They tried to do a lot of generalities to help keep the simps in check. Okay. So they don't want us to know what's really going on. Obviously, that's why they were in secret to begin with. So they had a slideshow prepared for us, go over their agenda items, but then they broke off into groups where we couldn't really hear anything. And they spoke amongst themselves silently, not with microphones. So I took it upon myself to go inside where they were having their groups, and I picked one group and recorded them the entire time, my camera on them. And
I heard that they weren't too happy about that.
They weren't, and that's okay. They cannot be happy about it. And I slept just great at night, just to let you know. But so I recorded it. What I noticed was a common theme, okay, amongst all the groups. First of all, it was not very diverse. I mean, yeah, they were full of cosmetic diversity, but all of them thought exactly the same. They were like those non-player characters in all the video games. They just kind of bounce up and down. They don't do anything. Okay, that's what they were. They all agreed with each other. There was no debate. There was no dialogue. There was no discussion. It was random people blurting out ideas. Everybody else was nodding their heads in total agreement with everything that was said, no matter what. I mean, that could have said anything, and they would all nod their heads.
Well, of course they're all going to agree to this, right? I mean, the entire SAC was founded like this. This is straight from the PHM website. The Superintendent's Advisory Council will serve as a steering committee to further the diversity, equity, and inclusion recommendations made by the SAC at the end of the 2020-21 school year. The objective of the committee is to serve as an advisory role regarding the implementation of DEI goals proposed by SAC. PHM values and celebrates diversity and seeks to work on eliminating racial injustices and discrimination within the school district as outlined by the PHM Board of School Trustees resolution passed on July 1, 2020. That resolution essentially was saying, hey, listen, George Floyd died. Everything's racist. And so PHM is going to step in because of racism somehow, because of George Floyd being killed in Minneapolis, right? And this was all because you had a group of radicals go to PHM and claim silence is violence. You haven't said anything about George Floyd, so that means you're all racist. And that means you need to do everything that we say, and we're going to hold you accountable, or else we're just going to call you racist over and over and over and over. which they still call everybody racist anyway.
Exactly. So like now the 0.03% now control the entire school board of PHM. But I digress. Okay, so I did notice a recurring theme. And that was what they were trying to do with AP classes, pre-college courses for high school kids, right? So what they're trying to do is they were talking about underperforming students that did not qualify to take the AP classes. What they want to do is take students who are not qualified and put them in those same classes. Now, they didn't talk about how specifically they would do it, but there's only one of two ways that they can do it. They can either A, lower the standards so the AP classes aren't worth the paper they're written on, right? Or move said underperforming student into those classes and make them further behind in school. Either option is not good. It's stupid, okay? And they never got to that point of it. They just said we should take students that aren't performing well. We should put them and place them in these classes with no follow-up. Like nobody asked the obvious question. It's how do you do this without putting the student behind? Or how do you do this without changing the standards to make it not worth the class that it's supposed to be in the first place? So nobody asked those questions because they're all, just nodding their heads in total agreement. Yeah, that's good. That sounds woke. I think Disney would approve of this. Yeah, man. It was mind-numbingly stupid. Okay, it was an hour and a half of my time I'll never get back. Not one idea was questioned. Nobody was challenging anything. It was just a bunch of morons, just venting about racial injustice, and that was about it.
Well, Ben, you need to keep going to those meetings. So thank you for making it. I unfortunately had a prior engagement and couldn't get there.
But that was the last one of the year, Clifton, coincidentally. Moving on to the next story. So a high school cross-country coach loses his job after an anti-mask speech at a school board meeting.
Yeah, Ben, this is Eric Hudson. He's been a cross-country coach with Bremen Schools for 11 years. He's been with Bremen High School for 5 years, extremely popular. There was a school board meeting in February where there were discussions about masking and bringing masks back potentially, right?
And we all know that worked really well. That turned out to be a massive success.
And so he stood up in front of the school board and said, listen, I'm going to give you an ultimatum. Either you don't do masks. If you do masks, he's like, I'm not going to quit, right? But I am not going to wear a mask myself. I'm not going to force my student athletes to wear a mask. And then he laid out all of the trauma, the psychological trauma that these masks have been causing to children, right? He was the only person who was standing up. He's the only person I could see with the school district there who was standing up actually for children, to protect children. So this kind of marinated for a couple of months. He was called in to have a meeting with administration after this had sat around for a couple of months. And then he posted a video on Facebook saying, listen, I just lost my job. I'm no longer a coach. But you may see me coaching somewhere else because I want to keep coaching, right? Just a shame. But you know what? He says that his convictions, have consequences. Convictions have consequences. And he is absolutely right, Ben. Convictions do have consequences. We need more people to stand up like this man. Stand up, let people know what's going on, and let people know that you have convictions to this. I think that if everybody did this, that we would have a much, much, much better school system all around, whether it be, protecting children from just this mask insanity, or CRT, or curriculum, helping kids get better, right? By actually standing up and saying, hey, this is nonsense. We need to do what's right for kids. So kudos to Coach Eric Hudson.
Absolutely. So we're going to play his video.
I want to make sure that we are really keeping the kids' welfare in hand. And Ron is right. We have to look at the safety, but we also have to look at the mental health of these kids too. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen kids break down because of the mask. I've seen kids that it's hard for them to perform because of the mental anguish. And just as Mr. Jennings said, we do have trauma. And part of this trauma is self-inflicted. I am not quitting. I will not quit on my kids. I am not going to enforce masks. I am not going to wear a mask anymore. So it's up to you. You can go to executive session or what you need to do. I am willing to take that fall because I've got a full-time job. I do this for the love of coaching because I love my kids. I'm doing it for them because they don't have a voice.
Good morning and happy Easter. I'm taking this time and this opportunity to make a public statement on what's happened this week and the events of the school board meeting on February 16th. On that night at the school board, I made some statements that I'm going to stand by. And those statements has cost my job as a coach at Bremen High School.
And moving on to the next story. Free admission to South Bend drag show for kids 4 years old and under, because obviously that's where they should be.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, groomer. Anybody who says that this is okay, once again, Ben, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I do not care what people do, right? I've been to drag shows. They're fun. They're for adults. Do not take kids who are 4 years old and under. Don't take kids in general to something like this. So the South Bend LGBTQ Center, they're advertising this, quote, all ages drag show, and they're offering free admission to children 4 years and under. That's it. That's the story. Now, this place, the crazy thing is how many people, how many big time movers and shakers in our government are a part of this organization and are okay with this. One, Mayor Pete was a huge supporter of the LGBTQ Center in South Bend. He actually was, he cut the ribbon. He's been to all kinds of events, but he cut the ribbon to their grand reopening in 2016. He and Chasten, his husband, have been to event after event there. It's a political machine. The president, mind you, the president of this center that is having a drag show and offering free admission to children 4 years and younger, she happens to be a deputy prosecuting attorney with St. Joseph County. That's according to Secretary of State records. Her name is Catherine Williams, once again, listed as the president of the LGBTQ Center that is hosting this event, right? She is responsible for prosecuting criminals. Ben,
I bet she does a hell of a job prosecuting pedophiles.
So I sent an email in requests over to the prosecuting attorney's office, right, to King Connor's office, asking if Miss Williams promotes the sexualization of children through events like this herself. As a president of the organization, was she aware of this event? What is Miss Williams' record on prosecuting sexual crimes against children? Miss Williams obviously represents prosecutor's office. Does a prosecutor's office endorse and or support drag shows targeted at children? Still no response for them, right?
It's obviously happened. I mean, obviously now with today's current state of, the Democrats in government, she's obviously climbing the ladder to be the next Supreme Court justice.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Totally qualified now.
So get this, the treasurer, her name is Sonia Karnofsky, and she worked as a business analyst and economic empowerment specialist for the city of South Bend from 2018 to 2020 under Mayor Pete. Again, right? Sweet. She was also the interim director of CDFI Friendly South Bend after that. CDFI Friendly is some weird economic development organization that I don't believe does anything, but gets plenty of funding. The current CEO,
like equity.
It's all about equity. It's crazy. So the current, the current executive director of the CDFI Friendly is a guy by the name of Samson Tellis, who I've done many stories on. He's openly donated to actual satanic organizations. He is also the president of the board of the South Bend Empowerment Zone School District. Go back to some stories too. CEO of the Empowerment Zone, essentially the superintendent of the Empowerment Zone, kicked a police officer out of an elementary school during a walkthrough the day after a school shooting threat. So that's fun. This guy, they're all connected. Every single one of these people is running our government and connected. and then pushing for children to go to these drag shows. Insane. By the way, I just went back through the social media pages or the social media posts for the LGBTQ Center in South Bend, finding this goes back to 2019, potentially 2018, where they've been having these drag shows for kids, allowing kids to go to them.
I could see taking my kids to like a drag racing show. Drag racing show. If you're taking your kids, you're taking your kids to a drag show, you probably shouldn't be near children.
You shouldn't be near children.
You should be within 10 miles of the children. You should be locked up.
But I would tell anybody they're fun. Go to a drag show as an adult. It's hilarious. It's fun. You're an adult. Don't take your kids.
I'll take a hard pass on that myself. Good to know. Good to know, Clifton. Good to know. And with that said, let's go on to the next story. The EFD, lack of equipment caused delays in water rescue. Only one dive regulator was available. You want to explain what that regulator is, Clifton?
Yeah, I mean, that's what
somebody drowned because of this too, I believe.
Somebody died in this incident. It was earlier last week. It was last week. A gentleman drove into the river. There was a police officer there, watched it happen, called it in as it was happening, tried to get in the water to get him, right? But immediately called the fire department to do a water rescue. Okay. You couldn't have asked for a better scenario where first responders are right there watching this happen, right? The chances of this person being rescued are much higher when something like that happens. So the fire department gets out there. Well, it turns out they only have one regulator. They usually have 6 to 8. They can't get anybody in the water, an actual dive team in the water. This regulator, it regulates the air pressure coming out of the air tanks so you can breathe underwater. So these divers couldn't get in there. They couldn't do anything. They had to call in Mishawaka. Mishawaka gets out there. Also, typically, when you're transporting out there, right? You have divers who are getting their suits and their gear on and getting ready to go. Well, they couldn't even use any of their own equipment because it wasn't compatible with the regulators coming from Mishawaka. So they had to use all of Mishawaka's equipment, put massive delays on getting this person out of the water. And obviously, that person was deceased. So there are investigations going on. I will tell you that the fire chief, Chief Kushwa with Elkhart Fire, was extremely open to me about what had happened here. He said that this is something that should not happen. And that the dive coordinator had sent all of these regulators out for maintenance all at the same time, without any backups, right?
Brilliant move, obviously.
Yeah, really, really bad move. And I'm surprised that this story hasn't gotten more play. I haven't seen it anywhere else. It hasn't gotten a ton of play on my website, but this is a huge mistake made by the people who we pay to protect us, right? And something needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen again. I mean, I'm assuming there's probably going to be a lawsuit now, because of this happening. Now, I've chosen not to name the victim of this incident. Other news stations are not, but other news stations also aren't reporting these details. So
now, hold on, Cliff. Now, digging into this a little further, didn't that police outfit used to have a diving team?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing.
It got expanded, and I'm wondering if that's because of any defunding that might have happened.
No, so it was pretty much a voluntary dive team, right? Is what I'm being told. Elkhart PD has been on a firing spree where they've been firing police officers, in my opinion, based on politics, right? And they've been finding reasons to fire good cops. Well, they've essentially fired everybody who was a part of this dive team. They have one person, but that person's not going around carrying any of their equipment anymore, right? Because it's the only one. So no dive team for the police department, and the dive team and the fire department didn't have their gear. I'm told that they've put gear together ready to be deployed now, which was good because this weekend was nice and warm, and I'm sure people were going to be near water. So something needs to be done. Hopefully these investigations get handled. We learn more about what happened, and this never happens again.
So good job, South Bend. Good job, Elkhart. Keep up the good work. Moving on to the next story. The next and final story. Oh, snap. It's our favorite felon. Bernardo Malone show again.
Oh,
George orders, quote, activist to pay nearly $10,000 in stalking / harassment case. Yes.
I love it. I love it. And I love that this judge was able to see through this man's crap and see what kind of scumbag he is, and to slap this $10,000 nearly $10,000 on him to pay for this victim's attorney's fees, right? This is amazing. So Bernardo Malone has been stalking and harassing this poor woman who was essentially the linchpin in uncovering. She was the person who, her reporting uncovered his scam of taking nude photos of full body nude photos of dead people at that funeral home at Alfred's mortuary. Okay. She was the person who uncovered, who she saw pictures. He showed her pictures. She reported that to me. She reported it to some other people. And since then, he has been relentlessly going after her, calling her a prostitute, a criminal, a thief, a philanderer, just all kinds of terrible, terrible things, just every single day going after her. So she filed a defamation case. She filed for a protection order. The judge upheld that protection order against him. He tried to get it thrown out. He tried to get it thrown out by claiming that he's media. Okay. He's not media. He tried to get it thrown out by claiming he's media.
He has a Facebook page, so he's media.
And he used a protection order that was a petition for protection order, right? That he filed against me, that was denied by a judge as precedent for allowing him to say these terrible things about this woman that are completely unfactual, right? So on March 16th, a judge denied his petition for a protection order against me because I write stories about him. That's it, because I've written stories about him. This is a quote from that judge's ruling denying his protection order request, saying, quote, petitioner's complaints are about news stories and social media postings made by respondent as the owner of Real News Michiana. Freedom of the press is constitutionally protective activity under the First Amendment to the Constitution. Petitioner may want to seek legal advice from an attorney.
Oh, snap.
So since then, by the way, he's filed like 2 or 3. He's filed, I know, at least one other. He keeps trying to get the protection order.
Hold on. So who's his attorney, by the way?
Oh, he's pro se.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's representing himself. So he's trying to get anyway, he wants to keep me from covering stories about him, right? So he's pushing, he keeps filing for new protection orders, all that stuff. The South Bend Police Department is actually investigating him for filing a false police report against me. So,
he's obviously doing a really good job of keeping you silent. Keep up the good work, Bernardo. Stop talking about you, we promise.
Well, the good thing about this is if he does not pay this money, now he has 180 days to pay this, right? If he does not pay this, though, he's being held in contempt. He also owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in restitution from his federal convictions still. So if he doesn't pay this, he's going to be held in contempt. The argument's going to be immediately for jail time. So more than likely in 6 months, he will, if he's not already in jail, he will be going to jail because he's not paying this off.
What an outstanding citizen.
Love it.
All right. Well, hey, I think that wraps up our show for this week.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Good talking to you, Clifton. Good catching up on all the stories.
Likewise, man.
Everybody stay tuned. Anyways, it's been a great Sunday. Good recap. As always, stay informed, folks.